So Merry Christmas. I feel like we don't have long that we can say it, so I want to keep saying it tonight. I want you to look to your neighbor, whoever's sitting right beside you, and just say, hey, Merry Christmas. I love Christmas. I love the songs of Christmas. I love the energy of Christmas. I love how people get so excited about Christmas, from children to adults. So I'm excited tonight to have the opportunity to come and to share a little bit of what's been hitting me for the last few months as I've been thinking about Christmas. Last night, I preached a sermon. We had our first Christmas service in here, and I said something incorrectly. I said a few months ago, I was on social media, and I saw this meme, and this is what it was, this thing that you see right here. And my kids came up to me afterwards, and they said, hey, Dad, great sermon, but that's not a meme. That's not what that is called. And I said, what is it? They're like, that's just something that's written, right? So I said, okay, so let me transform this a little bit tonight and say, this thing that was written that I saw, not a meme, and it says, and one day, just like that, you'll rediscover your light. You'll embrace your inner warrior. You'll snatch your power back, and the whole game will change. And I don't know what was going on that day. I don't even remember where I was sitting when I saw this. I think I saw it on Instagram. But when I saw it, I stopped and I paused, and I said, that is the message of Christmas. The message of Christmas is that it is a game changer, and the light that comes is something that we get to hold on to and take out into the world, and that light is the light of Christ. Christmas is all about rediscovering the light. It's about finding the light in the midst of the darkness. Friends, I don't know about you, but I think our world can be pretty dark. Do you agree? I think there's a lot of things right now that we see, and we go, man, that is such a struggle. And we find ourselves in a place where it is just so dark that we can't even see right in front of us. There was a pastor that I heard share a story one time. And he talked about how he was early on in his career. It was about 20 years ago. And he's at a church, and they have this big service that's going on. There's 3,000 people worshiping together, and there's 1,000 children. And they're off in a separate room somewhere down the hall. And he said all of a sudden, he found out later, a car hit a transformer, and every light went off in the church. I mean, the emergency lights didn't work, nothing. It was pitch black. And his first thought as he's sitting in the front row of the church is, what about the children? Are the children going to be okay? He knew they were just down the hallway, but he wanted to figure out, how am I going to take care of the children? So the pastor said these were steps that he had taken hundreds of times, but the room was so dark that the 12 steps to the door to the hallway were really difficult to find. And after some time, he fumbled his way down to the door, and he opened the door, and there was a mom who had already found a flashlight on her keychain. And he said the flashlight didn't light up the whole place, but the flashlight did give enough light to get them to the children. And by the time they got to the children and they started getting the children out of the building, people had gone outside, and they put their car lights on, and they lit up the side of the building. And he said the children got out. They were not scared at all. They thought this was super cool, right? They get to be in the dark all over the church, and they get out, and they're in the parking lot. The lights are on, and he said he made his way back to the space where they were worshiping. And when he got in there, he said it was like a 1960s rock concert. People had all their cigarette lighters out, right? And they're just singing music, and they're lighting up the space. And he talked about why that was such a potent moment for him. In that evening, as he was walking to the space, it was so dark, and it was the light that mom gave, just a very small light, that made him feel better. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't afraid that he wasn't going to get to the children. The small light lit up the space. Friends, in a world that often seems really dark, a small light makes a huge difference. Light in the darkness is transforming. Tonight, we're not going to look at one of the birth narratives of Jesus that's found in 3 of the Gospels, right? That was read tonight, and it was really beautifully done. But tonight, we're going to go to the 4th Gospel, the Gospel according to John. And I'm going to read you something that many people find really confusing, because John doesn't start off with, and there was a baby born, and this is what happened, and here's the narrative. What John wants to do in John chapter 1 is take the story backwards a little bit. So he starts off with this funny language in John chapter 1. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. That's weird, right? Like that text is strange. You read it and you go, what is John talking about? Why does John use all this flowery language to describe Jesus coming in to the earth? What John is trying to say is that the Son of God entering the world in human form transformed everything. But that's not the beginning of the story. What he's trying to say is the Son of God has been in the story since the beginning. Since the beginning of creation, since the beginning of time. So while Christmas changed everything, it changed because Christ comes in human form. Christ comes to bring light into a very dark world. But John wants to take us all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. So back in Genesis chapter 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. I want to invite you to imagine for just a moment the darkest space that you have ever been in. The darkest room, the darkest place, maybe even the darkest season of your life. And what I want to say is the beginning of creation was even darker. It was darker than the darkest moment you may have ever experienced. That was the beginning. Darkness was over everything, and there sits God. I love how the scripture uses this language. It says, there sits God hovering over the darkness, saying something has to change. Because what God knows, what we know, what most first graders know who study science is that darkness isn't really healthy for anything, right? Not much grows in darkness. It's hard to get warm in darkness. It's hard to experience life in the midst of darkness. And God is a God of life. God is a God that wants life for you and for me. I think the challenge with darkness is what the pastor was trying to say in that story, is that darkness paralyzes us. It stops us right in the middle of whatever place we're in, and it makes it really difficult for us often to take steps forward. Even if light is available somewhere very close to us, darkness can be paralyzing. I want to invite you to check this out.
That's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are two people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something?
Help!
I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do, is there?
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
So this seems ridiculous, right? It seems absolutely ridiculous. These people are stuck on an escalator. Just walk. But friends, that's what the darkness is like. We find ourselves in those dark places. And we're not even able to take those physical steps forward. We become paralyzed by the darkness that is around us. Friends, some people come to me and they say, hey, our culture is just so rotten right now. Right? Things on an international scale, on a national scale, in our community, everything's just so dark. And we go, we can't really do anything. We just have to stop. Or somebody will come and say, hey, my life is so dark right now. And what John is trying to say in John chapter 1 is that there is a solution to the darkness. There is light for you and there is light for me. It says in John chapter 1 verse 4, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John's message in John chapter 1 is that Christ is light. Christ comes and has this desire to bring light into your life and to my life in the midst of whatever darkness you're in. Christ has this desire to reach you right where you are. Now, I think it's bigger than simply Christ shines brightly. Did you see the kid that was in the star costume in the video? That's my favorite kid in the whole video, right? The kid is just walking like this, right? But Christ is bigger than just a star that guides you. I mean, the beauty of Christmas is that Christ comes in human form. And the beauty of Christmas is the last line in that, I'm going to say it just because my kids will be driven crazy, in that meme, right? In that statement, the last line in that says, and the game changed, right? And it changed everything. It's a game changer. Christ coming into the world in human form brings life. Christ brought light into the darkness, and unlike that little flashlight that the pastor talked about, that light lights up the world. It lights up your life and your situation, my life, whatever the situation is. Now, we need light to survive. We talked about that earlier. The author of John would suggest that means we need Christ in order to survive. I don't know how many of you have seen this show. Susan and I used to watch this show, Survivor. Anybody seen that show? I think it's on like season 90 right now or something. I mean, CBS is making a mint off this show. And the theory, if you haven't watched it, the idea is that they throw a bunch of people together and they break them into teams and they have to survive, right? And the way that you survive is you outwit, outlast, and outplay other people. And it's sort of like survival of the fittest, except sometimes just the most popular person survives because people like them and they're on allies and they're on teams. But it used to be years ago, and I don't know if it's still the case because I don't watch the show anymore, that people got to bring one survival item with them. Or they got to bring one thing. And I always thought their survival items that they're bringing are so dumb. Right? Like somebody would bring like a flag. What does a flag do for you to survive? I mean, bring fire, right? Bring matches. That's what you need. And these people wouldn't do that. They brought these really weird things. But the reason that I think the show is so popular, the reason that I think CBS makes so much money off of it is because I think in our very nature, we want people to survive. In our very nature, we long for people to have life. Even in this time in our culture where we seem to be tearing each other apart, I do think we still long for life. We still long for people to survive. We long for the goodness to be in people's life. And that's a really important longing. Now, what I would say is, if we get one survival item, what I want to try to say tonight is, I think that item is Christ. Christ is the survival item, the item to survive. And John says the same thing. John says the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world and through the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. Christ is coming to give us a gift this evening and frankly every day. That gift is life. That's the purpose that Christ says he comes. He says, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Friends, what I realize is one of the things, some of you guys are here tonight and you're here maybe for the first time. Maybe it's the first time you've been in a church in a while. And one of the problems with the light of Christ is that the church sometimes blocks it. The church stands in the way. And the church doesn't share the good news of the message of Jesus Christ. What the church says is, you're in and you're out. You don't get to do this and you don't get to do that. And what I want to say tonight is the message of Christ is one that is for all people. The light of Christ is available to everyone. That's what John is trying to get across in this passage. John is trying to say the powerful light of Christ is for you no matter where you are in your darkness. He understands that God's promise to be with God's people wherever they go takes on a new representation when Christ comes in the form of human. Because Christ will suffer. Christ will have pain. Christ will walk through the darkness with you, not just in his human form, but continues to walk through the darkness with you tonight. It's a different dwelling. And as I said, that gift of light is available to all people. There's a lot of darkness in the world. There are a lot of broken relationships. There's poverty. There's natural disasters, wars. There's racism, and so much more. And Christ is coming tonight to give you the gift of life in the midst of all of that. The question that I ask you tonight is, will you receive it? Will we be like the people who stand on the escalator that stops and get stuck in the middle of our darkness? Or will we step forward and say, I can come and experience the light? I want to read the last part of what John says, because I think if we receive the light, there are incredible consequences, because it says in verses 12 and 13, yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Now, I said there are consequences. Consequences we often think are negative things, right? I think consequences can be positive things. The consequence of this scripture, of the life of Jesus Christ, of you being able to receive it, is that you have the right to be a child of God. That's a right. Christ brought that right so that you could have that life, so that you could experience that life. No one can take that away from you. Friends, light is one of those interesting things. We have to sort of attach to the source in order to receive it, to experience it. What Christ is saying when Christ comes at Christmas is, I am the source of light and I want to be with you. I want to journey with you. I want to walk with you. Again, that thing that I saw in the beginning, the last sentence says, and the whole game will change. I don't know about you, but I kind of want the game to change. I kind of want life to be different. I kind of want the darkness to be lit up in such an incredible way. Friends, I spend a lot of my time with people who just talk about how bad the darkness is. And I wonder how different it might be if however many of us are here tonight just said, all right, we're going to carry the light of Christ out into the world. We're going to take it and we're going to try to shine brightly for each person to see, because the light of Christ has been gifted to every single person. Now, I want to say one more quick thing tonight. If you're here tonight and you say, look, I feel like I'm one of those people who is incredibly unworthy of the light of Christ because of something that's happened in my life or something that I'm doing, I want to tell you that I am a person who feels unworthy of the light of Christ. And John looks me square in the face and says, that is not your choice. Christ has already come to give you that light. It is the gift that Christ gives to you. So come. Come and receive it. Because you are a child of God. I don't want to be paralyzed by the darkness. I don't want to be part of the darkness for somebody else. I want to bring the light, and I want that for you as well. The message of Christmas is one of deep love, of deep grace, of deep light, and ultimately of incredible life.